I will call this meeting to order at 6:31, if we will all rise for a moment of silence. In the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can I get a motion on the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept or approve consent agenda items 3A through 3AA.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I will be abstaining from 3Z.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I will be abstaining from 3J.
Okay, Madam Clerk, did you get that? Mrs. Allenson is abstaining from 3Z and Mrs. Tata from 3J. Okay. Perfect. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Oh, I never called the roll. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please? My first day.
Allenson,
Here.
Carmody,
Here.
Laffin,
Here.
Regan,
Here.
Reynolds,
Here.
Tata,
Here.
Testa,
Here.
Marone.
Here. All right, thank you very much. We have a number of appointments on the agenda tonight. If you'd like to come up and get sworn in, please. Yeah, there's only a few. That's okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your service to our town.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 4. Items removed from the consent agenda, there are none. Public question and answer period. We have no takers for public question and answer. Moving on to item 6. Discussion of old business. Ms. Small, did you have an update on the Hidden Brook Lane situation?
At this time, I can report that we have independent confirmation that the engineer is working on some of the things that need to be corrected. So that part of that is active and chasing down some of the rest.
Okay, perfect.
So
Thank you very much. Item 7, can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-206B, with respect to the workers' compensation claim settlement of Leonard Thomas.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? We are now in executive session. call this meeting to order. Do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we come out of executive session.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? We're back in regular session. I'll entertain a motion on number 8.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the workers' compensation claim settlement of Leonard Thomas as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Number 9.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve a bid waiver to use a QBS process for the selection of a consultant to perform an analysis and evaluation of the grit chamber's design, operation, and effectiveness.
Second.
Mr. Amwick, do you have a? I'm so excited to talk about the grit, so please dive right in.
I figured. Good morning. Good evening.
Good
Just
evening.
as a reminder, my name is Neil Amwake. I am General Manager for the town of Wallingford Water and Sewer Divisions.
Mr. Hendershot?
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself for the record?
Rick Hendershot, Director of Public Utilities.
Thank you very much.
Been a long day. So, so I did figure Councilor Marone and Councilor Tata would be the most excited. And I will not take credit for putting the jar of grit on Councilor Fishbine's spot. You guys can decide. You guys can debate that later. But so let's talk about what a grit chamber does quickly at the wastewater treatment plant. So those of you who have taken a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, we have our headworks building. We have our coarse screens. We are in the process of designing a project to convert that to fine screens. Immediately behind the screens are grit chambers. And so grit chamber, we have 2 of them. What you want it to do is remove the grit and heavy sediment. And then your inorganics, those are considered your inorganics. And then your organic material continues on into the wastewater treatment plant, specifically the primary settling tanks and the anaerobic tank. So right now at the sewer plant, we are experiencing excess grit downstream of the grit chambers. So the grit chambers are not capturing the amount of grit. And so it is ending up in the primary settling tanks, the anaerobic tank, and as you can see from the jar, grit, AKA sand, and other inorganic material can damage your pumps, be caught in your tanks. We have flights and chains. The wear and tear on the downstream processes and equipment can be strong. So we being the sewer division are asking for a qualifications-based selection process to perform an analysis and evaluation of the grit chambers to determine the effectiveness of the existing grit chambers' ability to remove grit and determine the cause of grit accumulating in the downstream primary settling tanks and anaerobic basin, as well as recommend solutions. And the sewer division is asking for qualification-based selection processes. The first step is to understand what the problem is and then determine the best course of action. Since the scope of work for the grit chambers analysis and evaluation has not been entirely defined, and therefore there are no specific parameters on which to base a bid, a QBS process is the most suitable approach. A prime advantage of the sewer division utilizing a QBS process is that the sewer division maintains maximum control over the scope of the services as well as the costs for the resulting engineering services. The qualifications-based process is based on a firm's ability to perform the job, not merely on the lowest price a firm can offer. Specifically, the skills, experience, and projects of a similar nature are considered, not merely a firm's size, reputation, or pricing. And what the sewer division feels that we would like to have looked at is the design and tank geometry of the grit chambers, wastewater flow patterns within the grit chambers, retention time, aeration, grit settling, pump operation, and grit removal. So per the town ordinances, the town council needs to approve a qualifications-based selection. So with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Jesse?
Hi. I'm just curious, in the backup, it cites that the grit chambers were a problem in 2018. Is that?
So as part of the tertiary phosphorus project, as part of the WPCF upgrades project, the sewer division was required to do a facility plan. So in November of 2018, a facility plan was produced. It looked at all components at a cursory perspective from the headworks all the way to solids handling. So at that time, the grit chambers were identified as something to look at in the future, but our focus at that time was the tertiary phosphorus project and the upgrades. Just as a reminder, the town met the regulatory deadline to award a contract with 3 days to go, and then our tertiary phosphorus process was active 3 days before the regulatory deadline. So our focus really was on that. So this is something that we're circling back at. We want to take a closer look at it. And because it is in the headworks or the upstream portion of the wastewater treatment plant, and it has impact downstream, that's why, quite frankly, we're doing a deeper dive at this time.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if the grit jar, but I wasn't sure if this has been a problem since 2018 or if this was identified as something that could be a problem in 2018 and now it's a problem that we have to deal with.
I think both. I think it was a problem in 2018, but again, our focus was on the tertiary phosphorus project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have one. So I'm reading the backup material. So this is, I know that the studies to determine the source of the grit or the issue, but do you think this is a change in our influent, or do you think this is something completely unrelated?
No, this is standard at every single wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
So, great question. And so your question is really, where does grit come from? So, people are outside, they're gardening, they're in the dirt, they take a shower. This is kitty litter. This is other objects. You'd be amazed at what people flush down their toilets. The screens collect all those items, the large floatables. That's just the vernacular we use. And then it goes on to the grit chamber. We want the grit to settle out. But no, this is classic for every traditional wastewater treatment plant. Has fine screening or has screenings and then a grit chamber.
Thank you. Any questions from the public? One more shot to the council.
Thank you. I just want to say to any of the new counselors, if in the beginning you said that Councilor Marone and I would be the two most interested in this. So what that's about is typically we're invited for a tour each year, and it's fascinating. So for anyone new who hasn't been, it's fascinating. So we're usually the first two to go every year, and it's usually the hottest, muggiest day of the year for some reason. But it gives you a really good understanding of everything you talked about tonight. I can picture what you're talking about. So whether that's good or bad, thank you, because
No, of course. And then I think we will have, we will offer another tour to the town council. It will be after April 1st when our tertiary phosphorus season begins, and perhaps most likely after May 1st when our UV disinfection season starts as well. So I think it's important to have all the components running rather than just skip what we term our off-season items.
thank you.
So no other questions? Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Allenson,
Yes.
Harmongy,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Regan,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Tata,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Marone.
Yes, and the vote is unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Like
Mr. Chairman,
Your grit back? Or...
Mayor?
if I may, before you move on to item 10, the action we're looking for is to approve the RFP process.
Okay. Okay, so with the understanding that the motion is to approve the RFP process, I don't recall how the motion was made, but so revising it to approve the RFP process, can we have a voice vote?
I'm sorry, this is the next item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going back. Okay. Perfect.
Sorry for my confusion causing.
That's all right. All All right, so now we're on to item 10.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the RFP draft process to solicit a consultant to conduct inspections and report on conditions of municipal buildings.
Second.
Mr. Baltramitis, how are you?
I'm well. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, councilors. For your record, Rob Baltramitis, Public Works Director. So, as the mayor pointed out, you do have a corrected agenda. This was originally listed as a bid waiver. That was never the intention. We were never looking to deviate from the standard RFP process for this assignment. We're asking the town council to approve a draft RFP to solicit a consultant to conduct inspections and report on the conditions of several municipal buildings. So for new councilors or anybody who's interested, the town standard RFP or request for proposal process is a two-part system. Proposers will submit their full package. It's a Part A and a Part B. Part A is the technical qualifications of the submitting team or consultant, and that gets evaluated by a panel that the town, the administration will put together, gets publicly posted. And then after those are posted, the Part B that's submitted is the cost proposal. That gets opened. And then the successful firm is basically a combination of the best response taken into account, the technical and the cost proposal. Given the importance of the consultant's technical ability, if you will, I am suggesting that we weigh that heavier at 75%, the cost proposal at 25%. So it's still very much a factor in the decision. But again, I really think that for this, the technical evaluation of these consultants is paramount. A little bit more about the technical evaluation, and I did prepare the draft RFP. It was in your packets, but just for your record, I'll go over it. So we intend on evaluating these consultants on three categories, essentially. One is their overall technical competence of the project team that they put together. That team could be an assembly of architects, engineers, tradesmen, fire marshals, building officials, other code specialists. Secondly would be their demonstrated experience, their success on similar assignments. Have they done this for municipalities? Have they done it for nonprofits? Have they done 3 in the last 5 years? That's a minimum standard we put together in this RFP. And then lastly, the third component of evaluation would be their overall project understanding, and probably most importantly, what they describe as the proper approach for this assignment. So for the town of Wallingford to be successful with this. Again, so we did draft an RFP. I think technically it's very descriptive. But the basic things that we're looking for here, for this consultant to come in to put together and suggest to us what the building inspection program will be, what their rating methodology will be, and an overall schedule. The next step would be to conduct their inspections of each of the building that we're asking for and I'll close with that, which buildings we're selecting and why, essentially. Inventory all of the building's assets. By assets, we're talking about the exterior finishes, the interior finishes, roofing, HVAC systems, mechanicals, really a full gamut of everything that makes up these municipal buildings. We're asking the consultant to evaluate and rate those assets and note any deficiencies and the degrees of those deficiencies. And this is the crux of it. So for each building, we'll be looking for them to develop a list of immediate repairs and then also help us develop a 10-year capital program. So look at some of these assets and see what kind of lifespan is left. Does this roof have 5 years? Does it have 15 years? And then the last part of this overall assignment would be helping us with a capital plan with all of these buildings and putting this together logically and in steps so that we can look to fund these projects over the next 10 or so years. Let's see. The buildings I mentioned. So, I mean, there's many town buildings. The one I selected, quite selfishly, are the ones that DPW maintains. That's Town Hall. It's the historic railroad building. It's the senior center, the Scow STEM building on the same site, Parks and Rec and Animal Control. I'm also suggesting that we add the police station, so while right now that maintenance is actually done by the police department, as you know, they're looking to relocate. That's likely to happen in October of this year. When that does happen, that building will become the responsibility of general government. So I'm suggesting that be in there too. Lastly, and I know there's members here from the Building Maintenance Committee, quite candidly, publicly, I'm going to thank this council for putting the group together and for the work they did. I think it brought to everybody's attention the need to do this, but I think this is the next proper step, and I look for your support for that.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Regan.
So thank you for putting this together. The question I have is one of scope. As far as the RFP is considered, you've got the 7 buildings identified. It's great. It's a great movement forward. There are other buildings as well. The RFP language says not limited, but you're asking for a firm cost proposal, so you can't have it both ways in that identification. If there is a total amount of square footage that can be put in place where those buildings are identified, perhaps some leeway to add others in the event that we have timing or something, that RFP language can be tightened up.
Yeah, it's a catch-all, so it is in draft form. You're absolutely right. At this point, it's my intent to get the 7 buildings that are listed, and selfishly, that's the ones that I'll be maintaining. I think that little bit of language just gives us the flexibility. If we have a consultant, that we select through this process, if we really like them, and another agency, department in this town wants their building evaluated, perhaps that could be negotiated with your approval as well. So
how do you see that funded, though?
Well, so the funding of this or anything in the future has to come back to you. So this RFP process, once we get that cost proposal part, we have to come back to you and ask for money. So my first step when we open proposals, we open that Part B cost proposal, if it's something that we want to move forward with, I'll talk to the administration on how we best fund that, and then we'll come to this group and ask you to approve that funding.
Right, but if we're in a situation where property number 8 is being considered, we don't want to then go through the process and then come back, reopen the RFP, go through or ask them to adjust the bid, et cetera. I'd rather see the scope increased and then take a look at the overall cost of it, and then perhaps, given the council's ability to say, well, let's look at the prioritization of them, just as a suggestion. Secondly, as far as the building maintenance committee is concerned, now that you brought it up, there seemed to be, during the political season, more action taken as a result of the building maintenance committee existing, reporting on and making those statements. And you would see suddenly the next day or shortly thereafter an issue that was brought up, fix or whatever. I think I would support a continuation of the building maintenance committee in tandem with this RFP. Just put that out there.
And I don't see a problem with both going forward. As this council knows, the building maintenance committee, was really, their charge was to report to you. You would report that back to the administration. That would come to me. I think that's how it worked with the previous administration. I would agree with you when things were brought to light, we addressed them. It worked in that fashion.
Mr. Testa?
Excuse me. Thank you. This is actually more of a procedural question for the town attorney, possibly. And don't we need to actually approve a bid waiver to use the RFP process, similar to item 9, or not?
No, it's part of our purchasing ordinance. So when somebody wants to use the RFP process, technically the obligation is to give the council notice, and then if you wanted to say, no, I don't want you to use that process, you could within 30 days say no. He's bringing it here for you to approve it because he doesn't want to wait the 30 days to get it out. So, but it's not a bid waiver, it's actually a part of our purchasing ordinance. It's one of the acceptable procedures.
Right, okay. So then, now you have, okay, so we don't have to approve the use of an RFP process because it's allowed within the ordinance?
Well, you can actually, he's asking you to approve it only because the ordinance calls for a 30-day period with which the council could say no.
Right.
So, and we've done this in the past where we said, we don't want to wait 30 days to put it out. So we come to you to get you to say, basically agree with us that it should go out. So that's what he's doing tonight.
And if I can, Councilor Testa,
Yes.
one of the important reasons, bringing this here, asking for your approval to save that 30 days is to, and I can't promise I can do this, but try to get this in the upcoming budget cycle. It's going to be tight, but that's really what the intent is.
I don't object to it. I was more of a procedural formality thing. I didn't want to, I was a little confused there. Okay, when you use the term draft, it's actually the RFP you want to put out, though.
Well, it's the RFP that I put together. I call it draft because it's also being reviewed, mostly for form by the purchasing department before they let it out. I don't think that they would have comments on the technical portion I put together, but just on the form of the RFP itself. So it's draft in that sense.
Would we not have to approve the final RFP that goes out?
No, technically, he could have just come here and told you what he wanted to do and asked you to approve using that process.
Okay.
So he's gone a step further and given you a draft of what he's proposing. So he's correct, the purchasing department reviews it, all of them that go through and may have comments. Sometimes it's sent to me for a question or two. So, but in terms of its substance, he's given you what he's planning on doing, if it were tweaked, it's not of anything of a substantial nature, but normally, like I sent you all in the memo saying I wanted to use the RFP process for labor attorney going out and, nobody objected. And so,
Right.
But if I had wanted to cut the 30 days, my RFP wasn't done. So, I wouldn't have to put the RFP actually in front of you at that point in time. Because if you said no, then I would spend the time drafting something that you're going to say no to, so.
Would we then have to approve the award?
No. If it needs funding, you would approve the funding. So here you
That's,
have, yeah,
at that point, you'll come to us for the
Correct.
funding for this,
correct.
which in effect, we're approving the award.
Correct.
That's what I'm leading, okay.
But you're being technical, so I had to answer
Yeah,
it.
I guess. I just want to get caught up. Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. Actually, Councilor Testa's questions brought out the point that I wanted to make to the council, so that was it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Rob. I think this is a great idea. I read through the materials. I like the concept. I think the 7 buildings are a good choice. And I agree with Councilor Regan. I think it would be helpful to have the Building Maintenance Committee be a part of this, because if we're going to develop a 10-year plan, then we should have a group that kind of monitors the progress, keeps track of the things and so forth. I mean, theoretically, we could all be here in 10 years still doing this, but at the same time, it's going to get passed on to other people. And so I think we can't lose sight of those things. So my question to you is are there other buildings that are these 7 the ones that you want, or is there anything else that you would like to also include in here?
Well, they're the 7, including PD, which will come to me or DPW in October. They're the 7 that we maintain.
Okay.
So any other town building you could think of, it's another entity that's maintaining them.
Okay, and then, so just, the one thing that I have no issue with any of it, but the questions I'm sort of developing in my mind is, as we're sort of setting all these things in motion, we IT director last time, we do this now, are we going to ever kind of coalesce all of these ideas together? Because, we still need to fix the roads, and we still need to fix the schools. And so my fear is if we develop a 10-year plan of this, which is completely and totally great, if those things aren't done in concert with those other things, we may have a long list of stuff that didn't get done in 10 years because we had to do other things. So I hope that we kind of keep this all in perspective. So that's my only comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to roads and things, I mean, those are an ongoing obligation we have. And I did speak with engineering about reviewing the sidewalk process that we follow for getting around town with sidewalks. With respect to this project, once we have the whole scope developed and the project plan scoped out, it would be the intention of the administration to appoint a committee similar to the police station steering committee to oversee this project over its tenure. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion from the council? Go to members of the public. Any discussion?
Evening, Jason Michael, 81 Meadow Street. First, I'd like to thank Rob and his department. They were out today in Army-like fashion and did a really good job under some pretty hairy conditions at midday. So thanks. Second, I just have a question. And while this is great, does the town have personnel that, and this isn't meant to be adversarial, but do they have personnel that should be evaluating properties or looking at them? I'm just wondering, does the charter charge any certain department or engineers, anyone, to do this? And is that a ball we should get rolling? Because do we hire another consultant in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years when we have talented people in the employ of the town now? I mean, we have electrical engineers, we have structural engineers, we have people who know their stuff. And I just don't know if it states in the charter that any department or personnel should be doing this. And if so, should we recognize that? And if not, should we maybe think about having our departments do this on a yearly basis rather than wait until, the load is so heavy we have to pay outside of our budgetary means to get it done? That's it. Thank you.
Care to respond?
Well, what I heard was a question, and I think it really pertained to the town's ordinance, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert in that, so I don't know if there's a job description that would include that. I think in general, as Public Works, we would be the ones doing inspection of buildings we maintain. We don't have a position for that. Again, it's I think why the Building Maintenance Committee, when it was formed, found a reason to be formed, and I think it's why we're here asking for this RFP.
Any other members of the public? Seeing none, back to the council. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Allenson,
Yes.
Normandy,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Regan,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Tata,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Marone.
Yes, and the motion is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, everybody.
Any motion on number 11?
Mr. Chairman, I like to make a motion to approve an appropriation of ARPA funds for RCP Unlimited in the amount of $25,000 to Revenue Federal Grant account to the ARPA business account.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Laffin. Discussion? Janice, did you want to give us a little primer on this?
I thought you could do without me.
Never.
All right, so this application, you have the application, the financials were in the portal. When this application was first filed, it did not have the correct financials. You may recall that the council at that time allowed people to correct that, and this was one that did. When they did give me the transmittal of the financials, I didn't know, when I sent them on to the consultant for evaluation, and she noticed that, in fact, one of the years was incorrect. They gave us a 2022 instead of the 3 years that we want. One of the 3 years, I think, was 2020. That was corrected, and in conversation with the consultant, the company indicated that they had already bought the equipment that they wanted the grant for. And she brought that to my attention, explaining that, which I already knew, that if they had already bought it, they can't use the grant for that. when I inquired of the company, I said, I don't understand, you can't use the grant money to purchase something you've already purchased. I was first told, well, we didn't buy it. And to which I then said, well, please explain to me why you told the consultant that you did buy it, and now you're telling me that you didn't buy it. That request for an explanation went on for a little bit of time. And then finally I was told that, and I would get requests of why is this not being approved, or why is it not moving forward? And I said, I'm not moving it forward until I have an explanation of that question. Eventually, it was explained to me that the company, in fact, had bought the equipment but returned it because it was either defective or for some reason didn't work. And at that point, I said, well, I can advance this to the council, but I want to see documentation that in fact happened. So that was supplied to me, which is why it appears on the agenda. I will tell you that since putting this on the agenda, I was advised by the engineering department that this company took out a trench permit for work in a road, did not close it satisfactorily to the engineering department, and that remains an outstanding issue, just so you know. So it's had something of a bit of a tortured history. I mean, ultimately, I don't think I'm the one who can make the decision, so that is why it's before you.
Okay, discussion? Mr. Testa?
What do these people do?
It's, I think they do site work, like excavation type work. Small company,
What did they want to buy?
a piece of equipment for that purpose, like an excavator or something like that.
And refresh, can you clarify the problem the engineering department brought up?
To dig up a road, you have to get a trench permit from the engineering department, and they have certain requirements of how you do that and how you close it out, and it was not done to their satisfaction, and therefore, that's an open issue with them. And that was in, I think, around the middle of 2023. So it hasn't been corrected.
I mean, we've had a lot of, a lot of applications that we've talked about, a lot of issues pop up, and we go back and forth. And as overall, I think in the end, we've been pretty lenient and forgiving on a lot of things. But I know various counselors at times have raised issues. I don't know, call them pre-existing conditions, not being up on your taxes, not doing this, not doing that. Seems like it's hard for me to be judgmental without being judgmental. And, I don't want to speak critically of something I don't know enough about, but at the same time, it appears that there's a lot these people don't have it in a row. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not wording this properly, but can't get out of their own way, apparently, in a lot of areas. And it's troubling. So we're asked to, we sent the excavator back because it was defective. Now we want to buy it to meet the requirements. But the consultant and you've gone over this, and everybody seems to be comfortable with that situation. And then we find out that there's an ongoing issue with the way they do their work with the town. Is that the same thing as not paying your taxes to the town? I don't know.
I did feel obligated to tell you that, though, just because it was brought to my attention. I didn't know that, at some point in time, I did get written documentation that the equipment was returned. I'm not sure why it took so long to get that explanation, but that's
At the
where
same-
it is.
you
But
know, at the-
nobody's perfect, and
Well, at the same time, small companies don't necessarily have legal people on staff that are advising them that, hey, you're not doing this properly, and just trying to get work done and make a living, and I understand that too. I guess I just feel a little uneasy with the explanations that you provided and, um, and share those concerns, but that's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chester. You know, I share your uneasiness because I sort of see all the things you're talking about. Would it be, you know, the taxes issue was something that was like a non-starter for someone. You couldn't get approved without the taxes, but the people that cleared up their taxes, we then gave them the grant. And we really haven't applied a standard to anyone. You know, sort of everyone that asked for money got money. Would it be appropriate to make the money contingent on them clearing up the issue with the building department?
I think that would be consistent where you allowed people to make those other corrections with taxes. I don't know any, I mean, it's entirely up to you, but that would seem to me that's something that could be in line with that.
I think I would move that as an amendment then. That they clear up this be contingent on them clearing up whatever their issue is with the building department.
The engineering.
I'm sorry, the engineering.
A permit with the engineering department.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment?
Can we have it restated? That was going to be my, that's what I was going to bring up on the speaker list, but if you want to.
No, either way. So the amendment being that the application of the ARPA funds to RCP Unlimited are contingent on them clearing up the issue with the engineering department. Is that satisfactory? Okay. So moved and seconded by Mr. Laffin. Any discussion on the amendment? Let's take a voice vote on the amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and please note an abstention by Councilor Tata. Okay, now back to the item at hand as amended. Any discussion on the amended motion? Councilor Reynolds?
I had a question about the applicant itself, going back to the.
Please.
Okay. Did the ARPA committee send this back because they didn't have the information to review it, or did it get reviewed and it was sent back contingent?
No, it didn't get reviewed because of the tax document issue. So, and then the conversation turned into, did you buy the equipment? Didn't you buy the equipment? So I never sent it to the committee.
Okay.
So, but because I hadn't a satisfactory answer to that. And then the committee was basically done. It was a drawn out conversation.
Yeah, no, I understand all that. So, but the caveat, the problem I kind of have is we voted against business applications that you did not fund. So everybody didn't get funded. So I just want to draw that line. And the second part is that this application never got reviewed because it didn't have the proper tax forms with it by anybody. So the fact that we're willing, if they clear up stuff with engineering, to say, yes, you can have $25,000, I would like a little bit more information. And it never went through the committee. Like, I understand.
Others were allowed to correct the tax if they were the same way. It just got
So if
drawn
they
out
corrected, they just got
time-wise.
the full amount, it never went back to review?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So initially, in the initial way that the committee did things was that if we didn't have all the documentation
Correct.
to make a decision, we sent it back and we didn't make a decision.
Correct.
That was this one. So it didn't have the proper documentation, we didn't make a decision, it went back.
Right, and then the council gave them time to do that. And so then if there had been no other issue, it would have gone back to the commission.
But nobody ever saw it.
Correct.
So the money that we're approving is on an application that none of us have ever seen.
But I gave you the application and you had access
Oh,
to
I mean,
the
it's
portal.
in the portal, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's in the portal. Sorry, I take that back. But this is something that never went through committee at all.
We had one or two other ones that were like that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, oh yeah, we did, and then we had some that the council reconsidered, so, but there was, I want to say one or two that also fell into that category.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So to clarify, Mr. Reynolds, are you suggesting then that this be sent back to the committee for review, or are you?
There isn't a committee, right? So we don't,
Right, okay.
so that's just my stipulate, that we're going to approve this. If everybody agrees that it's an okay application, and everything, it didn't go through anything.
Okay, no, that's an important distinction.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Allenson?
Just a point of clarification. By the time we took action as a council to ask the people to reapply, I believe the committee had already finished all of their work. So essentially, their charge was over. And
we never made any stipulations that we were going to send things back through the committee. I agree, it probably would have been a good idea. But at that point, we were like super late to the game, just kind of making up, like, and how do we handle all of this? Because we still have all these things that are like missing documents, or it's like, you know, are you missing $100 of taxes? You know, we didn't know exactly how we were dealing with things. So this is the third one, hopefully the final one, that's, that has come back out of many that we gave the opportunity to essentially reapply.
So, Janice, I saw you nodding your head. Did you believe this to be the last of the hangers-on, if you will?
Yes, I don't, I think it's all done. There was one that was a very unfortunate situation, but the application was never complete in terms of everything. And so I don't believe there is anything else that would require anything new.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Anyone from the public? All right, seeing none, bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Allenson,
Yes.
Carmody. Laffin,
Yes.
Regan,
Yes.
Reynolds,
No.
Tata,
Abstain.
Testa,
Yes.
Marone.
Yes, and the motion passes. All right, item 12 is, entertain a motion on item 12, please. I'm sorry, item 12 is just a discussion regarding an RFP for the historic railroad station. Gentlemen? If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for the record.
Don Crouch, Economic Development Specialist, here with Joe Mira, Chairman of the EDC. So we sent a letter back in December regarding the historic train station project. It was kind of in between the election, new administration, new council. So really, we're just coming back, trying to see if anybody had any answers to any of our questions or wanted any input before we start working on the RFP.
Okay, discussion? Mrs. Allenson?
It's kind of a terrible day for you to be bringing this, because we just had a discussion on it and action on including it in the review by an outside consultant. So, I mean, I guess we could do two separately, but does that make it redundant? Because we don't know what we want to do with it at all.
Well, I would say this is more, what are we going to do with the property versus Public Works is more exterior, interior, which part of the work we've had with Silver Petrocelli was on the exterior and interior portions of the building. So it'd be kind of in conjunctions. I'm assuming they would be done with their consultant before we're even proposing an RFP, possibly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Laffin?
Thank you. So going back to your original memo, as a starting block, I guess, would not vote to sell the building. I would not support that. This is the one building in town that I think would be responsible for us to maintain and keep, and that I would support leasing it into a commercial, for commercial use. The foot traffic would be amazing. Is it the end-all, be-all? No. But it would rank very high. It would score very high for me. The other ones, financial guidelines, considerations, going down again further, number 7, does the RFP request previous projects that the developers completed? And that's all that part seems like a resume thing. I don't know that, is that something that's normally on an RFP?
In some cases.
So then sure, I mean, people are going to ask them about it anyway. I don't know how I would score that. I don't want to eliminate somebody younger or newer with a new idea or a new concept. Go ahead.
So I could address that.
All right.
The reason for that question is because it's a historic building, so we wanted somebody who's familiar with the historic building codes.
Oh, on the
That-
construction side. I was thinking more on the use. I'm sorry. So
Okay,
the
I'm sorry.
beginnings of the RFP for the use. Yeah, construction, 100%. Yeah, I would agree with that. Estimates of cost funding. Yeah, I mean, the typical kind of like a business plan, like a business use, business concept, business plan. What can we do to kind of create a hub down in the center, downtown? We've got so much going on at the top of the hill. I would love something that kind of activated the area at the bottom of the hill.
If I could just back up a minute.
Sure.
The reason for this, especially for the new commission, when we had a proposal, it was set back to say that the commission wanted an RFP rather than go forward with what we had. And at the time, there was a lot of discussion, and that's why some of these questions were on there. Who wanted to sell the building, who didn't, and what have you. So basically, the end of the conversation was for EDC to put out an RFP. And the reason for this letter was, no problem, we can put one out. But we wanted to be clear on what it is the council was looking for before we started putting people through the changes of filling out forms and stuff and come to you with a proposal that just didn't fit your agenda. That's basically what this is.
Thank you for the clarification.
Well said.
What's up? Councilor Chadha?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I don't want to go through every single one of them, but as far as the first question, I think I said it at the last meeting. The first question is the town willing to sell the building? For me, I would be personally if it was the right situation. I think because it's on the historic registry, that really limits somebody who were to buy it. If somebody were to buy it, what they could do there. So I would be okay with that depending on what it is. So I just wanted to say that. I'm sure, obviously, we're not going to all agree on that, but I would be open to that depending on the use. And then as far as the other questions, I think for me, what I'm just looking for is, I just want to get as many ideas as we possibly can. So however you feel that's, the best questions to ask to get that. Certainly you had one idea that you presented that was a specific idea that somebody came up with. Maybe that's the only idea there is. Maybe there's other ideas that we don't know about. So for me, I'm just hoping that we get as many ideas as we can, kind of keep it open-ended, and maybe something is presented that, none of us even thought about, and we all look at it and say, this is a great idea. So that's just kind of my thought on it. So however you feel is best to get as many ideas as possible that we can all sift through and decide what we want, that's kind of my goal with it. Thank you.
I largely agree with Councilor Laffin, except on number one. I would be willing to sell the building depending on the price and depending on what someone was willing to pay for it. I think it's a tough area to develop because it's an old building with a lot of issues, right? So if someone was going to buy it, I think they're going to have to come with substantial capital for something that's kind of seems like a bit of a risky investment. But I would be hear anyone out, I guess all comers. But other than that. I didn't think that the plan that you had presented before was a bad plan. I just had some concerns with, when we sort of partner with someone, you just want to make sure that you're getting, what's appropriate for the taxpayers. So, anyone else? Mr. Reynolds?
I'll answer. I'm not going to answer all the questions. I wouldn't be willing to sell the building. I'd like to keep it. And I think foot traffic in lower downtown is very important. In looking at the POCD plan, there's a lot of stuff on there, though, that, sort of talks about in concert with this. For example, having a dedicated revenue stream to maintaining the sidewalks in that area. It's listed as like the highest priority from the report from 2016. I don't think we've done that yet, right? So there's a lot of stuff we should be doing. I'm in favor of this. I also agree with Councilor Allenson that the timing of this is a little rough, considering that Mr. Baltramitis was just here developing a plan to maintain the building. So it's a little skew, but I don't disagree that that's an important part of the lower downtown. I just, I think we should move forward with planning for use, but I think there's other things that are just important, but, or maybe more important, so, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the RFP that was presented by Public Works is really limited to the structure of the train station. This RFP for EDC is about the use going forward, about what we're going to do with the inside of the building. But in terms of the structure and the exterior, that's going to remain in the responsibility of the town. So I think it's a completely separate issue, and I don't think the two are in conflict with each other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I totally agree. Coming back with the RFP, I wasn't on the council yet, but I saw the presentation. In that presentation, there were estimates of changing the building itself, including construction costs. So that's what I'm getting at. If the RFP is going to include altering the appearance of the building or whatever, then or the interior or anything like that, because that was what was part of what the presentation was.
Yeah, no, the exterior of the building cannot change.
The interior even then, like if
I think what we're offering is the potential of a whiteboard starting point for the interior of the building for the developer to use. So that doesn't necessarily overlap with the items that are going to be addressed with the Public Works proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to sound a little combative. When did we decide the EDC was going to do this? Like, when did we issue the charge to the, and I'm strictly speaking procedurally. When did we make a decision that EDC was going to run an RFP on this? When we had exceptions to the plan was presented, my understanding, I expressed my feelings that I want us, as in town, to issue an RFP. My expectation was that we would have, at some point, a discussion about what we'd like to do with this building and how to proceed. And that very well could lead to having the EDC manage an RFP process. Now, one could say that this discussion tonight is that discussion, but it's not at our bidding. It's very similar to them coming to us with an idea that we didn't ask for. No, not yet. And if it is the administration's desire to have EDC run an RFP on this, then they could share that with us. We never made that decision. That's all I'm getting at. And they probably are best suited to do it. But again, it seems like we're one step ahead of ourselves in answering their questions on this. And we've got 3 people, or 4 people, I might have lost count, giving different answers to question 1. You can't send them off today to prepare an RFP with the idea, is the town willing to sell the building, up in the air. That can't be a maybe, or it could be, I suppose, but I certainly wouldn't want it to be. We need to talk about this and decide, as a council, is the town willing to sell the building? Ourselves, answer that. Not send out an RFP with a maybe, and then talk about what are we looking for? What would we like to see? What is important to us? And I thank you for presenting these questions for us to talk about. But I don't want to send the commission off tonight with a charge we haven't formally given them. Maybe we could settle it tonight, I suppose, but that's just the concerns I have. We haven't had a chance to even talk about the trade station as a council, as a new council, with the administration, to say, what do you think? What do you want to do? We haven't talked, what are we going to do with adult ed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to be discouraging of a group of fine people, smart people, who are, putting work in, ready to hit the ground running on this. But I think it's premature until we have that discussion among ourselves. Thank you.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
First of all, this letter was prepared in November. After the November council meeting, we were told that they wanted us to produce an RFP. In your November meeting, we sent this out beginning of mid-part of December. This is not part of this administration. This is actually a carryover. I just wanted that as clarification. What you do with it from this point, that's up to you. You're still the town council. Again, we were asked to do this. We did it. We didn't overstep our bounds.
When did we ask you to do it? That's what I'm trying
In November meeting, go to your minutes. You guys got those fancy computers.
Ask them to do an RFP directly. If I'm a fool and I stand corrected, I stand corrected. I don't recall us formally asking the EDC to do an RFP.
Mayor?
Thank you. So, the November meeting, this was discussed, and there was an interest in the EDC moving forward with something, and the council said, way to hold it. My recollection of that meeting, I wasn't there, but, way to hold it. We're going to follow a process. The council didn't like the fact that the EDC was discussing with one developer what the ultimate project would be. So, from the perspective of the administration, I did recently attend a meeting at this building that was held by Adult Ed. And I can tell you that they are busting at the seams out of the building. They have to move out. The building's going to become vacant. And I think it's appropriate that the EDC look at this next project because this could be a hub of economic development for that neighborhood. I recently attended the grand opening of a restaurant there, and you think about the history of how that neighborhood evolved. The train station brought commerce to that part of town. That 150 years ago, that's what happened. And then train use diminished. And when train use diminished, that part of town suffered, for a variety of reasons. I mean, there are businesses that are along the tracks because they would have loading docks for trains to either drop products or pick up products from there. And then that train station was a center of travel. People came in and out of town. People came to visit town from that train station. It's not the preferred form of travel anymore. So to repurpose that building in a manner that would draw people to that neighborhood for all reasons that we could think of in terms of using that building is terrific for economic development in that neighborhood. So I do think the EDC or the administration takes the position that the EDC certainly is the right part of the administration to spearhead this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilor Tester, to your point, this is an economic question, right? And so I could want it to be any number of things, a coffee shop, a restaurant, a museum, or whatever, but there's economic realities, and that's not my area of expertise, where the EDC, it kind of is their area of expertise. So this seemed like the logical choice to me is to have them, they're asking us for what are our thoughts, and they could turn that into some kind of a plan and try to solicit, ideas to come back to us with. So for me to wrap my hand around it, what could fit in it's fairly small inside, and it's a historic building, and it's, the parking situation is a little strange, and it's right in the middle of town, so it's what could it be? It could be a lot of things, but, I'm not the guy to tell you, what it could be. So I kind of like this approach as a way to sort of evolve the conversation. Councilor Regan? Councilor Carmody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to get back to these the questions that you presented to us. I don't think we should be selling this building. It's a prime piece of real estate in the center of our town. I think the town should be able to maintain some control over it, specifically or particularly because we're investing some money into this property, and I'd like for the town to still maintain that control. With regard to what should be there, I liked what Councilor Tata had to say. I would like to see something open-ended, see what developers out there have in mind for this property. I liked what was presented by the EDC before, something along those lines, or something, completely out of the blue that we're not privy to, that a developer may have an idea for. So that's really my ideas at the moment. I don't know, if we're going to be taking a vote tonight, are we going to take a vote on not selling the property? Are we going to sell the property? Councilor Testa brought up a good point. There's a lot that needs to be discussed here before we move forward. So those are my 2 cents for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Councilor Brennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to selling the property, I don't know, for me, I think the approach would be to find out what the options are first, and then we decide if we're going to sell it. So I don't think we need to decide tonight if we want to sell it or not. I think it'd be better to decide that after we see what becomes or what comes from this RFP. So if somebody presents something and we think it's a good fit, then I think we can decide at that point. So I don't know if we necessarily need to decide that tonight. I think it's okay to let this go and see what comes back. The only other question I had for you, Mr. Crouch, probably is, I know there's some other vacant buildings in that area, and I know you know all about that. Is that anything that would come into play with this, or is this RFP simply going to be the train station? Or might somebody call you and say, hey, I see this RFP for the train station, but I'm also interested in, this lot over here. Is that something you would be able to help people with, or once the RFP's out, can you not guide anybody like that?
Yeah, I would say most of it would probably be the RFP is just for the train station. Could a developer come in and say, hey, I'm working on this parcel, this one, and I want to do a combination? I guess theoretically that could be in one of their responses. In regard to selling the building, I think that's probably just the one question really of putting it in the RFP specs is the town willing and open to that conversation? Because if we get 10 people saying they want to buy it, and we're really not looking for someone to buy it, then, we just kind of wasted time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Laffin?
Thank you. And so I'm clear, I would not support in any condition or scenario selling the building. Any proposal that came with a purchase of the building, the town selling it, I would not support. The only scenario I can see of the town relinquishing some sort of control is if we dropped it off to one of our preservation or historic trust groups to completely manage. We don't own those buildings the same way, I guess, but we in large part helps fund them and have maintain influence over them. I think that building is in a great place and in a great situation to be used economically, not as a museum. It's already being used in a non-profit way use, and I don't think that's as effective. I think it'll be better in business, and I think that we need to maintain the ownership of that building just because of its history. We would only be able to control the situation or the scenario of selling it once, and then that would be it forever. Look at all the different buildings and properties in town that have come up where it seems like a really great transactions just occurred, and then the mortgage lender building, that seemed like some people just loved that, and then that all fell apart, and then it became what it became afterwards, chaos. So you are clear, and I don't know if that requires a resolution vote or whatever, I do not want to sell it under any condition.
If I could. The Economic Development Commission that I've been a part of, when we look at things, we look at it from the eyes of a business person. In my mind, the economic development is looking at the town as a business. If this is my business and that's one of my assets, do I profit by selling it, or do I profit by using it to the advantage of developing the neighborhood? I would never sell that building. If this was my town and I owned this town, that's probably one of the last buildings I would sell. We've worked 25 years, maybe 26, in coming up with zoning changes for that area. We have the incentive housing. We have the downtown improvement zones. We have the parking zones that we just revitalized. There's been a lot of work put into that area. And we've already got people that are interested in neighboring properties. The two people that were looking at doing that previous project with us. We're looking to put in somewhere north of $10 million into that area. So the area's got potential. It's up to the town to showcase it. And this could be one of our keystone projects. It really, really could be. To lose control of the building, I think future generations would be saying, shame on us. We should have never lost control. That's just my point of view.
Councilor Ellison?
So what happens next? So like say we won an RFP, I really kind of appreciated from the perspective that Mr. Beltramitis just presented to us, where he showed us the RFP before, so we kind of knew what we were putting out in the ether in case, and I personally am not involved in purchasing, so with the town, I am cautious maybe, like it's not that I don't trust what you guys would put in the RFP, it's just like I would be curious to know, and I don't want it going out there to say it goes up and somebody goes out and gets on social media and goes crazy about it because it didn't include some language or something. So if I were to ask for an RFP at this point, could we ask for you guys to draft one, bring it back to us?
That was our intent.
That's your intent,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we'd still follow the same process with purchasing.
We just needed clarification.
Okay. Do you feel like you have it?
The truth-
No
truth-
selling,
you want the
yeah,
truth?
yeah.
I think we got as much clarification as we're going to get.
Yep.
And I think we got enough tonight to work to put something together.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you. Mr. Regan?
So, a couple of points. I too want to echo the sentiments of my fellow councilors who are in opposition of selling a piece of the town's history. I also, with the passing of the earlier component to do the study, to get a list, to do the fixes that are necessary, perhaps ADA compliance, perhaps a number of other things that are necessary to make the building viable for use. With that passing, we do also have the time to find the suitable mix of what goes in there. The mayor mentioned before transportation station. When I go, I drive an EV, and I drive throughout the U.S. On a regular basis. And why not make it a modern day transportation hub, transportation area, where there is EV chargers, where it's a destination to go to do whatever, perhaps then pick up dinner, perhaps pick up another different things. The point is, I think we need to see design concepts instead of a project plan from a developer. Let's take a look at what this building looks like now, preserving the history as by law we are required to, but thinking 10, 20, 25 years out, because the investment that we need to make to bring this building up to speed is going to be significant. So how do we go to RFP for design concepts? Or, it's not something as simple as sending this out to a bunch of art schools to come up, maybe it is, but to come up with, a number of different concepts. Is it hiring, again, an architect to give us, 5 different proposals and make one, a lot of green initiatives and make one, all business, and make one mixed use for concerts and whatever else has been thrown there? I think we need to step back and understand, we don't know, I think, as a body, what we want to see there. Otherwise, those recommendations would be flowing in from some of us on a regular basis. It's not that the proposal and the concept for the earlier developer was bad. It was just the one that we were considering. But now, we have to broaden the horizons, given the time that we have, in my opinion, and put together something that gives us options that can be presented, and we vote on one of those or none of those.
Those are all good points, and they will be part of the RFP. And we'll see that.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Okay, so I share the frustration and done. Probably a little bit more of a hostile nature than I intended, so, but,
I just think you misread us, that's all.
no, that's okay.
You're very calm compared to previous meetings, so you're doing fine.
I'm telling you, right? Well said. But anyway, if it's the administration's, desire, this is how we go. Council clearly feels this is the way we're going to go, and I'm okay with that. So let's make it productive. Answer your questions. Number 1, no, I don't want to sell the building. Number 2, yes. 4 through 7, yes, clearly. My question to actually try to be productive on this, I think number 3, I need the clarification. What are you looking for there? Because that's important. When you say most of the other ones were, will it include a narrative, estimates of cost, time? Yes, I think all of that stuff is important and should be a part of this. But when you're asking us, what are the financial guidelines or considerations that the council would like specified, that's something I think we should clarify and talk about, because what do you mean by that?
Basically, what are they going to invest in the building, and what are we going to get as far as return on their investment?
Financial guidelines and considerations. How much, are you, in other words, are you looking for guidance to put in this RFP that the town would be willing to participate in investments into the building?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
We would be asking the developer for their projection on what they anticipated cost of their improvements and the rental that they will be paying us.
But that they would be investing, or would there be talk of what the town might invest?
No, we already know what the town's going to have to invest. Well, we don't know.
Well, if,
We knew
yeah,
at one point. And when I leave here today, I'm going to look at my license to find out who I am. But anyway, the investments basically is nothing more than what do they anticipate as their financial investment? And when the building is whole, what Wallingford's rental income will be from that building.
I appreciate that clarification.
Just as a case in point, the last one that we had was going to invest $500,000, and we were going to make $120,000 a year. That's what we're kind of.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it took us 10 years to pay off our investment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. To the public?
Bruce Conroy, Ridgeland Road. Hey, Don. I talked to Don about it. I think that I really do believe that a generic proposal, like they're going to be however many, they're going to cut it up into however many units, is a great idea. And as for selling it, anybody on the fence should know the National Historic Registry does not protect buildings from demolition. All right? So let's just make that perfectly clear. They can be knocked down, they can be changed in any way by the owner. What the National Historic Registry does is give you advice on how to keep it the way it is, and maybe some funding opportunities to help you keep it or upkeep it. But it can most definitely be demolished by a private owner. And then, I don't know, a little strip mall can be put in. Just wanted to make sure that you all were clear, because you didn't seem like you were. As for the rest, a generic commercial spaces, a nice design is pretty much what they're doing. It's a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. Mr. Michael?
Hi, Jason Michael, Meadow Street. I'm just confused. What the RFP is going to be asking for? Are we soliciting a company to pay them for ideas? I'm truly asking. Is that what we're asking companies to do? Or projects, like full-on projects? Okay, so if I'm the and I don't know what the space is going to be like to dovetail with the mayor's statement, Silver Petroselli gave a number of what to make it into a white space. So where's the launching point? In other words, if you ask me if I got an idea to do something with the train station, well, I see what it looks like now. Am I starting there? Or are we going to make it into a white space and make it, is that part of the RFP? In other words, is that part of the RFP that the town is going to make this way? Or is the town going to vacate and have at it? I think that's an important part of what should be, set out to companies to decide.
So, Mr. Crash, correct me if I'm wrong, though. So if we don't sell the building, the town is going to have full obligation to maintain the exterior, correct?
But yeah, both inside, outside, like we currently do. Pretty much, I mean, I would say this RFP right now is to go out, so maybe we do get a public-private investment into the project, kind of similar to what we proposed with the one developer. Hopefully you save the taxpayers some money. But we might get nothing. So then we'd have to come back. Maybe it is a white space after that. Hopefully we can get some public-private investment.
So are we soliciting ideas, completed projects? Is that what the RFP is going to be?
Projects.
So again, starting, I'm not trying to go back and forth there. I just want to understand, how does that go out and then say, well, we might make it a white space, or we're not going to do anything and you get to fix everything?
Yeah, we'd be starting from where we are right now.
So that's how it's going to go out. Like, we're not going to put a dime into the building. I mean, a large amount of money into the building, and then we're going to ask the question, what do you want to do with it, or what can you do with it?
That's enough for economic development to decide.
No. Okay, thanks.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else? Right back to the council. All right, so do you have everything you need to keep this moving?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank all of you for your time. Look forward to working with you.
All right, number 13 is a discussion possible action on seeking applications on the Fair Rent Commission. So this came out of ordinance. Councilor Allenson?
Thank you. Sorry, making sure my mic's on. So, as part of the Fair Rent Commission, in order to move forward with that, we have to seek applications. And so we, as Attorney Small sent us today, a draft Fair Rent Commission application. We need to make some decisions about, what the stipulations are. What do we want to ask? What do we want included in the application? So this pretty much covers it all. I would say, and then also, what's the level of experience? Would be my only other ask as far as this is concerned. If they don't have experience, it's fine. It's just a disclosure. But so I guess I would have to leave it to us or to everyone here to discuss what are the stipulations that we want. It should be a mixture. Obviously, we can't have a supermajority. It should be a mixture of tenants, landlords, and property owners. And do we want to stipulate some percentage of those? So I guess, Attorney Small, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, with regard to the tenant and landlord, the ordinance calls for one of each to be on the commission. So I just put this together. This was just a kind of a starting point as to what an application might look like. The chairman asked me to do that for this meeting. So you have to decide, how you're going to proceed with taking applications, and how, what your time limits are, what you want in the application. Are you going to interview? Are you going to have a small committee do it? How are you going to proceed in doing it so we can get this done?
So basically, we should just say we accept this draft and put it on the website, and we want applicants, and we're going to visit the applicants and interview them in 30 days. Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. We'll put it on the website. I don't know if you want to do anything else. And, yeah, set your time limits and how you're going to proceed in making decisions on who gets selected.
Can we just parse it out and so like, can we work on discussing what's the time limit first? Then we can work on discussing, do we want an interview process? Then we can work on discussing how do we approach that? So first of all, let's start with how long do we want the interview process to be? 30 days? Or not the interview, the application, sorry, posting to be out.
I would say 30 days. Well, I threw out 30 days. 30 days because anything much longer, we got to get going. I mean, we got people are already kind of, they've reached out to me like, oh, I have a problem. I'm like, well, just can you wait a little bit because we're putting together the commission now. So I would say 30 days for everybody to submit these, and then post that. We handle it like we handled some of the housing authority interviews. We got an application. We lined them all up. The building review committee, we pulled them all in here and we interviewed them all. We ended up appointing all of them. We wouldn't be able to just do that depending on how many applicants there were, but I would say 30 days.
The motion?
I make a motion that we post an application for the Fair Rent Commission for 30 days on the town website.
Second question. Or is this the application? So we're also approving this application?
Not
Well,
this,
no,
Okay, so that's
content of this, because I have
one
two
application.
additions.
Yeah, we'll take this one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
So we're going to post an application we haven't approved yet?
Correct.
Okay.
Discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, so the period's 30 days, and then so to ferret it out, I guess, anyone see any changes to the proposed application as presented by the town attorney?
I do. And this is actually just like a business point. I would ask them what weeknights they are absolutely not available. Only because, what if we get a bunch of applicants together, we approve them, and then one person that we approve can't meet on, they can only meet on the night of the week that everybody else can't,
So that's a good point. And to that point, I mean, we could be prescriptive on the time they meet, could we not? Like the first Tuesday or whatever.
I would be careful about setting that, certainly at this time. So, and, it could be depending on how many applications and whatnot, and if they have to have hearings, they get continued, so I think I might leave that alone.
Okay.
Perhaps let a commission chair or something.
Okay, so the suggestion is to add a section for people's availability to this
Correct.
application.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that a motion?
Does it need to, can we
I
make
don't know.
all of the change motions at once?
I guess we make all the changes and then,
Yep.
I think it's okay to leave it off. Like, once the commission gets appointed, they'll get together, like we do for other committees, and they'll say, like, who's available what nights? And somebody's like, I'm not available Tuesday. Okay, and you're not available Tuesday. I don't want to say, like, oh, you know what? We're not going to include you because you're not available on Wednesdays. I don't think that has to do with the getting picked to be on the commission, I guess, as far as our perspective goes.
let them work it out amongst themselves.
That's what I think.
That makes sense.
I mean, it's a point of question, though. It's when you get interviewed for a job, and say you're working a part-time job and you're working nights, and you say, I can never work a Wednesday night, and they're thinking, and then it turns out, and you interview the person, and you're like, well, tell me about your Wednesdays. And then it's like, well, it's not really never.
In those situations, though, there's already kind of an established work period. There's nothing for this right now. So this commission is actually going to kind of figure all that out. Now we wouldn't appoint somebody to wetlands that could not attend the wetlands meetings because that's on a regular or monthly schedule. But in this situation, it may be more of an ebb and flow, like some of our other appeal groups are and whatnot. I don't know if they'll even work it out where they only need like 5 people present to have a vote, and maybe not everybody always participates. I imagine it as more organic and
Happy to
ever-changing.
Happy to defer.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councilor Laffin's point, we do have, there's a building code compliance appeal committee that only meets when there's business for it. And because there are vacancies, there's one vacancy on that commission. I wrote to one of the members and, asked if he was aware of anybody who might want to join that commission. And he said, we haven't met in 3 years. And they only meet when there's an appeal filed. And so we don't know what kind of regular business this commission is going to provide. It may turn into one of the, like the land use commissions that have a regular monthly meeting, but until you know that, it's hard to commit the committee to a certain weeknight.
Thank you. That's a fair point. These are the kinds of things you would ask in a job interview, right, as opposed to, putting on an application. All right. So I will move this application as presented.
Mr. Chairman, could I just?
Please.
So one thing I didn't put in here was anything about being an alternate. I don't even know if, like, when you get people to go on the commissions, I don't know if you say on an application, do you want to be an alternate? I mean, I don't know how that handles, but I thought I'd bring that to your attention. I don't say anything about the alternate, because we do need 2 alternates for this too. Or do you leave that to like interviewing and say, well, we can't give you a membership as a regular member, but an alternate? How does that, I don't even know how that works, so I didn't put that in the application.
Thoughts from the council?
I think it's okay to leave it off. I mean, if they're like, no, I only want to be a full member, like, okay, then no, then don't accept our offer, because we didn't pick you for the full position in the first place if we're down to the alternate list.
So I think if we identify that there are permanent seats and alternate seats that are available, would you consider serving on both? Leave it at that question and then move on. And if we have a list of applicants who, let's say we've got 10 of them, but 6 said no, then we would narrow down that list or whatever combination of it, just to make them aware that we're seating both, and you may be asked to serve as an alternate if you're okay with it.
That's a good idea. I could do that.
Any other discussion on that? All right, so I will move this application as presented with no changes.
What would that change?
With the one change. Sorry. It's my first day. Wait, well, I just made a motion. Do we have a second? On the application?
Second.
Okay. Jesse?
This is discussion on approving the application.
Yes.
Okay. I just had a question about the resume or biography. Is that typical of something like this? Because it's not a job.
I think, I personally think that it's kind of important for this particular commission. There's a lot of, it's a pretty heavy ordinance. So I think I'd want to know somebody's background, especially if you have quite a few applicants, then I think that your interest, you might be interested in knowing specifically what particular expertise or talent they bring to that commission. And then, I was even thinking, we don't have a standard form for any other commission. And at some point I thought about making this generic. So that's something we could talk about later too, and then you could decide, is that something normal? Or you could even, if you thought that was too much, I think just a brief explanation or a biography of who you are and where you come from I think that would be a benefit to you guys when you make your decision.
So I was kind of thinking actually in reverse. I was hoping, I would like the resume.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I would like the resume, but if we include biography, then if we could include biography with relevant experience or something to that effect. Because I could write you a biography about me and it could just be that, has nothing to do with
you like butterflies.
Right, and it meets the criteria. It meets
Long
the
walks on the
criteria.
beach.
So, yeah, so that was my only question.
Mr. Testa?
I just wanted to point out a typographical error in case you were going to use this, where it says, please attach a copy of your resume. brief biography. I'm just
Yeah, well, this is
No,
going
I'm
to be,
just
yeah, it's going to be
silly,
put on
but
the,
I saw it.
yeah, on the website, and we'll have all that fixed.
If this
Thank you.
becomes it, you want to fix that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other discussion on the application? Take a voice vote on the application, then all in favor of the application is presented with the brief biography of relevant experience being the only adjustment.
No.
I'm sorry, oh, man.
Are you willing to serve in both?
Yes. Correct. Okay. All right, so with the two changes, all in favor of the application with the two changes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And then the other item is,
The size is stipulated, correct?
Yes, so I guess if we leave it for 30 days, then what do you want to do? What are you going to do with the applications?
that's right. So the other thing is, so does the full council want to interview the applicants, or would you rather have a subcommittee of the council review the applicants, or interview the applicants?
My opinion is it's going to be the full council.
Well, I mean, this is a council decision, so if the full council wants to interview the applicants, we certainly can. Without knowing how many there's going to be, and we could defer that question until we have an idea of how many applicants we have as well. I just think from, like, as someone that does a fair amount of interviewing, like, if you have to interview 3 people, it's not a big deal, but if you have to go through 50 applications, it's quite an undertaking.
Are we under time constraints to get these people?
I mean, not really, but we were supposed to have this done in July, and so the constraint is just, we're late with our homework, essentially. So thoughts?
I would say be open to the full council, just because what's going to happen is then somebody's not going to come to that meeting because they weren't on the committee, and then they're going to have a ton of questions, or they're going to stop up the full meeting on the appointment of the person because they've got a lot of questions or whatever. Unless we made an agreement that it was 3 people that interviewed them, and the full council accepted their recommendation without question. I already see head shaking. So, I think full support. The only reason I would even entertain the smaller subcommittee would be if there was just an agreement to accept.
Okay. All right, that's fair. So any objection to the full council interviewing the applicants? Want to speak, or you're good? Go ahead.
I want to speak.
Please.
Well, I'm fine with the full council. I think the full council should review the applications, narrow it down. You could clarify if we're going to interview everybody that applies or not. That could be quite a lot of interviews. The other thing I have to bring up is there's this meeting when we interview these folks. Is it a workshop? Is it a public meeting? I mean, I'm not even making a joke. We're going to interview people. Is that going to be open to the public to comment on and to question people?
I mean, my thought would be that you would not allow the public to question, because I think in an interview, you're sort of obligated to ask the standard set of questions of every applicant.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm opening up.
to the
I'm opening up a can of worms.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a
that
fair
we've opened
question.
up for ourselves. So when we interview folks, it needs to be a special meeting or a special workshop that does not have public input. And otherwise, you might have a problem. That's all.
Understood. Good point.
This would be a question for the mayor. I seem to recall in the past when we had interviews for something that it was it an executive session possibly, or no?
I don't recall an executive session for an interview. Okay. I mean, I think in the past, and I'm not sure how long ago, the council had an employment issue because the council had an employee. Those discussions were held in executive session, but I don't think interviews for boards or commissions were done in executive session.
I may be thinking of a job interview.
I think the last time we did interviews was for public celebrations. And got a little wild in terms of the content of the questions. So I think that we, as a council, we should try to limit ourselves to asking like a consistent set of questions for, for the sake of fairness.
So
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
You can agree on the questions ahead of time.
Right.
This is not an
Agreed.
executive session. This is
Right.
not something that
No.
that can happen in executive
Now,
session.
I'll
Okay.
double check, but no.
Okay.
But the workshop is perfect, so then you don't allow
Don't
public
have
comment.
public comment, but it's still open. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My recollection is that it occurred, I think, one time after we made the public and comment at all meetings rule, and it was a dice roll, and I think just nobody asked, but there were members of the public present during the interview.
Okay. Thank you for the
And
clarification.
we did open it, and I don't think anybody asked any questions. I would vote for the workshop idea as well.
Mr. Regan?
So you've got three different people's perspectives. Just a generic resume, interview question, you'd have to have three sets. I mean, and this is the whole purpose behind this commission is to have those different perspectives. So, a building owner is going to have it different than a tenant, and is going to have it, so, just keep that in mind.
Anything else? All right, so I think we've agreed. So we'll take a voice vote that the full council will interview the candidates, and we'll work out the schedule when we have an idea of the number of applicants. Does that make sense? All right, I guess that's my motion.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? A motion carries. Is there anything else on this particular topic that we need to discuss? Okay. All right, perfect. So moving on to number 14 is a review of the council rules. So at the last meeting, we had talked about the council rules and the potential for workshops. I don't know if anyone had time to look at come up with language on workshops.
I apologize. I think I kind of remember raising my hand saying that I would, and I went home, fever, in bed for 3 days, and then I was out of the country for a week. So I didn't do it, if you were all waiting for me.
all good.
I think we have rules. It's already written from our council rules, I think 6 years ago. That's all I was going to do is pull that up.
Okay, yeah, I looked through my archive of council stuff. I couldn't find it. But if someone can find it and forward it to me, then we can potentially put it on the consent agenda. Because we essentially took consent on it last time. So I'm just looking for the language. All right, good. So I think that's it for number 14 for now then.
I might have it right here.
You have it? Oh, all right. Well, if you want to forward it, then we'll add it to the next consent agenda. Okay. Perfect. Please.
And then I just have a couple of minor, basically grammatical errors. I can just forward those also, and we'll just combine them
Perfect.
with Councilor Laughlin's, if that's okay.
Okay, that's perfect.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the council? Seeing nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.